What's up, fight fans? Today is, I don't even know. What day is it today? It is Monday, of course. Oh, here we go. September 26, 2016. This is the Monday Morning Analyst. It has been a few weeks. I have not been here for a little while. I was on vacation. It went very well for the most part, and I'm back now. So last we left you, we were talking about UFC 203. Today we're going to talk about two events, UFC Fight Night 95, and then the first round of the Rizin 2016 Grand Prix. I believe that's the official name of the event, but we'll get to it just the same. So those two events that took place over the weekend. There was a Bellator kickboxing event, but I'll just be honest with you and say I didn't even watch it. Also, we don't want to talk about anything but MMA on this here podcast. 3 parts to the podcast, of course. We overlook the event, focus in on one fight, and then we look in the third part at what's coming up ahead. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. And without further adu, let's get into it. Okay, so the first event that I would like to talk about is, of course, the UFC Fight Night 95. Almost close. We're pretty close to UFC Fight Night 100 here, coming up not too far from now. This took place at the Ginásio Nelson is the name of the venue somehow. The city was in Brasilia, Brazil, with an attendance of 8,410. No word yet on the ratings. This was headlined, of course, by Cyborg Santos, or Cyborg Justino, taking on Lina Lansberg. So let's start from the top down, shall we? Cyborg defeated Lansberg at 2:29 of the second round. Lansberg managed to hold on, both figuratively and literally, by sort of not stifling Cyborg in the clinch exactly, but slowing the fight down a little bit. Actually wasn't the worst strategy, all things considered. She was probably going to get blown out no matter what, so, wrapping a overhook and around the neck isn't, delays the beating in some ways, but it also slows the fight down to some extent. But really, even there, she was just no match for Cyborg, either physically or, this is the thing about Cyborg, we just don't give enough credit, I think. Technically, she was overmatched, too. Cyborg was the one, as Dominic Cruz noted, was doing the underhooking. Those skip knees to the ribs on either side were flawless and pinpoint. She was able to push off, create distance, and bomb on her. She knew when to blitz and when not to. Cyborg is talented. She's really, really talented. And then positioning on the ground, she doesn't just hit hard. She marries it with pretty technical weight distribution. So, Cyborg's a handful. Great win for her after a brutal weight cut. Renan Barão defeated Felipe Nover 29-28, 29-28, 30-27, so unanimous decision. There was discussion after this fight about, how good did Renan Barão look? It's tough to answer. I like this fight because to me it felt like a bit of a tune-up fight. Nover is very, very good, but he's not the kind of guy, unless you're really not coming correct, to put it on you. And so I think that it was a refreshing moment in some ways for Renan Barão. But the question is, how good did he look technically? And I think this sort of is part of the question about, to what extent it was a tune-up fight. For me, he did look good. I don't think you can say he looked poor. He had good foot movement. He did get a little tired in the third round, but essentially when he wanted the takedown, he could get it. He was finding a home for the left hook and the cross. He was just doing a lot of everything he wanted to do. It was just never this sort of hugely dominant at any kind of moment where he was ever having, Nover rocked or whatever. But that's sort of Nover's charm. Nover loses fights, and of course he's been stopped before, but he's still pretty technically fundamentally sound too. So that Barão didn't look amazing over him, I think, is right. He didn't. But he didn't look bad either. To me, this was just the kind of fight that Barão needed. The only question for me, though, is while Barão did the things he wanted to do, I'm not sure I saw a whole lot of new things from him. In other words, what Barão showed me was that he hasn't necessarily declined so much from those fights that he's had, but I don't know that he's really made a lot of technical evolution either. He's kind of stayed where he is, which was a very high place, of course. He was champion, but for me, when I look at this fight, I definitely say, yes, Renan Barão looked good. But what I can't say is Renan Barão looked new or different. That, to me, is the difference. Roy Nelson defeating Antonio Silva at 4:10 of the second round via KO. A nice little sort of inside uppercut, shovel punch, doing the job. Antonio Silva taking some shots better than I thought he would, but obviously, how many losses does he have in a row now? This is getting really, really bad. First of all, he's 37 years old. He's my age. And, Jesus, he hasn't won a fight since the Soa Palele fight, which was August of 2000. 2015, and then before that, UFC 156, 2013. So he is on, in his last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He has lost 6. Of those 6 that he's lost, TKO, KO, KO, TKO, KO, KO. It might be time to hang it up for him. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, then we move to Francisco Trinaldo taking on Paul Felder. Surprising result. He wins via TKO doctor stoppage, 225 of the third round. I thought Trinaldo looked really good. Now, Felder looked really good too, especially with they were standing open stance, so each one had a better shot at using their rear leg for body kicks or inside low kicks or even head kicks, and you saw a lot from both sides. Felder did really good early, I thought. Nasty with the kicks, less so with the hands, but enough combinations and movement to basically stay out of trouble. But as the fight wore on, I think the difference for me was that Trinaldo was able to stick and move a little bit better and to be a little bit more just unpredictable generally, and I think that stifled the offense of Felder. Felder likes someone to stand in front of him and trade, and I don't mean stand in front of him like statically. They can move around and everyone is showing great skill, but nevertheless, he kind of likes a guy who wants a bit of a gun battle, even if they are a talented shooter. Trinaldo was much more about in and out, side to side, throw something, get out of the way, and I just don't think they ever let Felder, as the rounds wore on, to do a whole lot with it. Now, really, the difference, though, on the ground was that Felder, when he got put on his back, he just didn't do a whole lot. He kind of locked up full guard or sort of an open guard, but never really threatened off of his back. And here's the thing about doing that. Like, Tony Ferguson really provides an excellent example here. Like, even if you throw up an armbar from your back and you don't land an armbar, you can then just sort of roll over into turtle. Now, maybe he might be scared that if he rolls over into turtle that he'll get his back taken. Okay, fair enough. But I just mean clearly just holding on from guard and then getting cut, which is what ultimately was set. Now, that cut by itself didn't do it. It took a little while after that. But the point being is you get it. Like, you just got to do more. Whatever that is. Throw the armbar and then re-guard. Throw up the armbar and then go to turtle and then shoot for a takedown. I don't know, but there's a lot of different options. But just sitting there is... It's just an MMA and modern MMA at the highest level. It is hard to sit in full guard and control someone. Roger Gracie has a really amazing full guard in pure jiu-jitsu, but I don't think full guard is dead. I think BJ Penn is really good at full guard, but unless you're really good at full guard, you should be doing something else if it's not working right away or you don't get an immediate stand-up or something. Eric Spiceley defeating Thiago Santos via rear naked choke. What a revelation by Eric Spiceley is in this. We're going to take a look at him actually in the second segment. I just was like blown away by the stuff he was doing. Thiago Santos has had his ups and downs. I'm not here to present him as Captain World Beater, but he's a very tough fighter. As you can see, he looks amazing getting off the bus, and he can hit super, super hard. He's got some skills. Eric Spiceley basically had no trouble with him. Very, very strong grappling performance from Eric Spiceley. We'll take a look at that in the second segment. Godofredo Pepe defeating Mike De La Torre. Godofredo Pepe is one of those guys who's like really technical and really talented, but just has no issue donking it up when he needs to, and just sort of blitzed De La Torre, who's a very, very technical and talented fighter. And I just feel like Godofredo Pepe, if he was just wild, it wouldn't work. And if he was just trying to be super technical, I don't know how good he would be. But against the right kind of opposition, when he brings the fact that he can snatch a submission because he's got great awareness and a great ability to finish on one, with that donkery of just throwing bombs and putting himself in some, sketchy positions, nevertheless, he can make it work, and you saw that here. And by the way, remember De La Torre? We talked about this in the last one. If you're sitting up on your heels and someone's on your back, that's not as good as leaning forward. De La Torre sits up and gets his neck snatched and gets yanked backwards again. Never where you want to be. On the preliminary card, Michael Przerich defeating Gilbert Burns, 30-27 across the board. At a catchweight, of course. Hani Yaya defeating Michinori Tanaka. Tanaka really, and that was 29-28 across the board as well. Tanaka, the better athlete, and to me, the better scrambler and wrestler. But Yaya just a little bit ahead positionally with his grappling. And I think that paid the difference, or made the difference in the end and paid dividends, however you want to describe it. Yaya finding ways to beat talented guys even this far into his MMA career. Pretty spectacular. I thought Tanaka's grappling and physicality would make the difference, and it definitely did to some extent, but not enough to win. Yaya looked really sharp positionally. Jussier Formiga defeating Dustin Ortiz, 30-27, 29, 27, 29, 28. Score's a bit weird there, but god damn, go back and watch this. Formiga looked incredible with his positioning. I mean, everything he does in jiu-jitsu is super tight. You can go back and you watch, he has his pass where he does an instep pass, and then to do it, he gets at least one side, but I think both sides double underhooks. And it's hard when you do that because if you raise your base too high in the air for an instep pass, then you can get rolled. And you see what he does is he not only never raises his base too high for the instep to then slide and move to the side control, he keeps Ortiz, who is hard to hold down, he keeps Ortiz's shoulders flat to the mat at the same time, so he must have like super tight pressure on top. That was impressive, man. I mean, Formiga, we already knew his jiu-jitsu was great, but his MMA jiu-jitsu is just a thing of beauty. Eric Silva defeating Luan Chagas. This was a crazy fight. Both guys going back and forth via rear naked choke at 3:57 of the third round. Silva doing the old Eduardo Dantas special where if someone sort of turtles, rather than trying to come around them, you just hop backwards over them and you're automatically on their back. He didn't do it quite the same way that Dantas did it, where he was able to use one of his legs to trap the other guy's arm. But nevertheless, got the rear naked choke. Great job by Eric Silva. Looking better this time around. Apparently the camp changes maybe what he needed. I don't know. Alan Patrick defeating Stevie Ray. Unanimous decision. That's what it was. Vicente Luque, who has just, I think, really shown a lot of skill since the Ultimate Fighter, to be honest. Beating some tough guys, man. Defeating Hector Urbina at 1 minute into the first round with just a brutal shot against the cage. Folded him right there. I think it was a right hand, if I'm not mistaken. Phenomenal by Vicente Luque. Unbelievable. This guy has really come along. A couple of those guys from that Black Zillions versus ATT season are showing a lot of promise, and Luque is one of them. Gregor Gillespie defeating Glyco Franco, unanimous decision, 29-27, 29-27, 29-27. Okay, bonus awards. They went to Eric Silva versus Luan Chagas as Fight of the Night, and then performance, Vicente Luque, and then Eric Spiceley. One quick note about Dominic Cruz's commentary. I'd give it an A- because obviously his ability to analyze the fight is just so tremendous. My one tiny criticism, and it is tiny, it's tiny because A, I don't think it impacted the event so much, and B, it's super correctable. He just talked over John Anik a lot, and I think if he just dials it back a little bit, they'll have the perfect marriage, and one will set up the other. You see that Brian Stan is naturally a more parsimonious commentator. All Cruz needs to do is work on that, and he'll be right up there with him. Okay, and then the other event this past weekend, this was the Rizin World Grand Prix 2016 first round. This took place at the Saitama Super Arena in Saitama, Japan, with an attendance of 17,546. I don't think that's very good, but neither here nor there. I'm not going to go through the whole card because there's just some fights I just don't care about. Couple things I want to note. Kron Gracie was the headlining fight versus Hideo Tokoro. He won via rear naked choke. I don't have the time. Though somewhere close, it would be what I think would be the rough equivalent of the second round for us. Kron Gracie looks awesome. Really awesome. You want to talk about a guy who's really nasty full guard. Whoa. Very, very good. And he's constantly changing positions in full guard. One thing that I really caught my attention was on his back control. He never puts in the body triangle, at least he didn't in this fight. He goes one hook super deep and one hook kind of shallow, and he uses that in the same way as a body triangle. In other words, it completely neutralizes your hips. You know, the guy just can't get free, but more than that, he can move you around with it. Right, he can position himself and then kick you into certain spots that he needs you to be. So it's not just controlling, it's steering at the same time. Very, very nice from Kron Gracie. And, you know, Hideo Tokoro's a tough guy. Like, look out for Kron Gracie, man. He might be making some noise here pretty soon. The only thing that worries me a little bit was that he would just sort of walk down Tokoro. And he has some striking. I don't not to say he doesn't. But he did that in a ring, where you have the right angles, like this, right? That's going to be hard to do if he ever gets to an octagon. He gets someone who can Holly Holm him a little bit. So we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Anything else I care about? Oh, Mirko Krokop defeating Hyung Man Myung with an arm triangle choke. Nice one, too, by the way. Let's see. Baruto Kaito defeating Kazuyuki Fujita, and then Mr. Ironhead then retired. This was a unanimous decision. Darren Cruikshank defeating Andy Sauer. Basically took him down and choked him out. Trying to think of some other ones I might care about. Here's one you should care about. This one caught my attention. Amir Ali Akbari. If you don't know the story about Amir Ali Akbari, he is a guy who was a 2-time, I think, Greco world champion in wrestling and got caught for doping not once but twice. And I think he's either been banned 4 or 8 years, but basically his career in wrestling is over, right? He can't wrestle anymore and make an Olympic team or anything like that. So he's now apparently in MMA. He's good. He's really good. You can imagine that his takedowns are sharp, but it was more than that. He has a natural grappling aptitude. He passed with ease and then moved into mounted crucifix and did it looking like he'd been doing that for years, and maybe he has on the side, I don't know, but it looks to me like he has natural grappling aptitude, and I am kind of curious about what he's going to do. Now, Joan Almeida, I'm not saying is the toughest challenge in the world, but Ali Akbari looked like he had some skills to be reckoned with, so keep an eye on him. Obviously, Charles Crazy Horse Bennett defeating Minoru Kimura with like a 7-second punch. Kimura runs across, jumps in the air, tries to flying knee, and Crazy Horse drills him and then proceeds to give the most amazing post-fight speech ever. And then Gabby Garcia defeating Destiny Yarborough via key lock. Everyone was asking, has Garcia's striking improved? Marginally. I don't know if she's ever going to get better. We'll see. All right. And I don't know if there's any bonus winners for Rizin. No, there's not. Okay. With that out of the way, let's take a look at something Eric Spiceley did. A couple things in this fight that I really just appreciated. He was so good in this time. And, I mean, you could break down a Cyborg fight, but I'm not sure what's there to really break down. There is some, of course, but Spiceley really caught my attention. He got a performance of the night bonus. Let's give this guy a little shine if we can. Great job by him. Let's take a look at that fight now. All right, I'm not going to go through the entire fight here, but this is Eric Spiceley taking on Thiago Santos. I got to be honest, man. Eric Spiceley looked really kind of sharp in this fight. I was very impressed. So a couple things he does here that we just want to go over because it's just when a guy shows really strong, like, because here's the difference. Like, right, you look at Thiago Santos. I mean, he couldn't look more athletic if he tried. Eric Spiceley doesn't look like, of course, out of shape by any stretch of the imagination, but doesn't have the same kind of physical appearance. But you know, he won this fight to me because he was just much better technically, much better. Put the fight where he needed to put it in terms of what skills is he good at versus Thiago Santos, and then just showed a clear disparity in skill. All right, so first of all, what does he do? He kind of pulls half guard here. Santos tries to get an arm in between, which is a part of the right thing to do, but really what you want to do is just disengage, and you see Spiceley kind of gable gripping here. Now, we're going to go through, there's more to this than what I'm discussing in this particular slide, but just to show you how things start off. Then you can see here he actually steps over. So now he's going to step over. He's going to put in on this side. This is the foot, by the way, of Eric Spiceley. He's wrapped up inside. He's hard to punch here because this arm, again, the inside arm of Santos is occupied as like a blocking mechanism, right? You want to get this on their face. You see Spiceley kind of turned away. He's looking at the mat because he can't turn in because of what Santos is doing. But he's going to do on this side, he's going to do a lockdown. And on this side, he's going to essentially try to get up under, if he can, Santos, or get right close to him and then create an angle on him, which is, I think, the one who actually is successful in getting. Now, he does try both, though. So let's go through this. So this is what you're looking at. You got the lockdown here. You got Spiceley trying to figure out a way inside, trying to get an underhook here. If he can get that underhook, we've talked about it before. Remember when Anderson Silva fought Daniel Cormier and he put a lockdown on and didn't even attempt an underhook, which to me was just stalling, basically. We can all have a difference of opinion on that, but for the vast majority of any time anyone's locking up a lockdown, you need to have an underhook to start doing something with it. And you can see him trying it here. He doesn't quite get it. And then you're going to see what Santos is going to try and do is, again, put a sort of blocking mechanism on this inside, whether he's pushing on the shoulder, grabbing behind the elbow, pushing on the face, something, right? Okay, and then you see him. I can't be sure here because this is not a style of grappling that I do a lot of, but I've gone against a lot of guys that do this. I think what he's trying here is what's called a whip up, where if he can get the underhook here and he can hand here and use the underhook, he can then push in one motion. He can push Santos up and above him, which then he can use to either get behind, take the back, sweep, do something. But it's called a whip up. I don't think he gets it because, as you can see, Santos is sort of laying him flat-ish, and he just doesn't have enough behind this leg, behind this thigh, as he sort of bases out here. But I think that's what he's trying. Okay, and then he goes back, brings his knee inside, and he's kind of flattening him here. But this is what I want you to notice. This is the thing that, to me, is really kind of important. Okay, this slide is like really telling, if you ask me, because Spiceley has this lockdown, and he doesn't have the underhook, which is what he really needs. But what does he have here that's critically important? Something you don't see a lot of sometimes when guys get submitted for very good reason. He's on his side. Look at that. He's on his side. If you are flat on your back, even in full guard, you're not going to be able to do anything hardly with it. Even if you have someone in full guard, like closed full guard, you kind of have to be crunched a little bit. Like you have to be doing a live crunch the whole time because you have to be going up and doing things. You can't just lay flat on your back for no other reason than, one, you don't have the kind of muscle activation you need to get things going, and then two, there's just too much friction. Where you want to be is you want to be on your side. Thiago Santos is doing a good job of blocking the face here of Eric Spiceley and maintaining this like discipline inside the elbow, or excuse me, inside the armpit, to always make sure he has the underhook, to not allow the underhook from Eric Spiceley, because that's when things get really bad for him. But at the same time, he lets Spiceley sit on his side. No, you got to get him off of that, man. You got to get him flat on his back. Flat on his back with no underhook, he can't do hardly anything. Here, he can at least bide his time and fight for something, and you can see he's not, because he's forcing Santos to react to things he's doing, especially on that inside arm, he's not taking any damage here. Hardly any damage, anyway. But being on your side, man, that is critical. It sounds stupid and it may be obvious to you, or maybe if you've never grappled, it doesn't sound that obvious or that important. It is essential to be on your side, and he never really gets flattened out. Now, he gets flattened out a little bit here, but you can still see his hips are off the ground, and here's the other part you want to notice. He tries something, again, he tries to go under that leg, right, to get that whip up maybe. He still would need that underhook to do it. Santos sprawls, but what does Santos do when he sprawls? He puts his hand on the mat, and I bet you Spiceley noticed that, even looking away, even eating that elbow there. So he goes back. Thiago Santos at least doing a good job of not surrendering that underhook. This underhook, if Spiceley got this left side underhook, it would be very, very bad for Thiago Santos. Very bad. Okay? But he does a good job of leaving it here. But Spiceley recognized that when he sprawls, he puts his hands on the mat. That is no bueno. So what does he do? He goes, pretends anyway, like he's going to full guard, like he's going to re-guard or in any kind of sense. What do you notice here? That hand goes right back on the mat, does it not? It's supposed to stay on your chest like this other one is, which he's using to sort of flatten him out. And look at Spiceley. Even though he's full guarding, still off of his shoulders. He is not flat on them, okay? Then he goes to re-guard. Look at that hand. Now, what happens is Thiago Santos doesn't even realize he's boned here, and he brings his knee inside to close the space so he can't get full guard, so he's got half full, half butterfly. Doesn't matter. He didn't even need this other one here. This is just to trick him. But look at that arm. It is trapped now. It is trapped. He hasn't even locked up anything, and it's trapped. So what happens? He goes through. He's going to use this elbow to slide inside. Look how far away his arm is from his body. Okay? And he's going to use this to create a lane to bring his leg over. See that? He's going to slide that elbow in and down as he brings he grabs his ankle. Watch. Like that. See? He's going to knife it in and around like that. Like that. See that? And look at his body. It's never on the mat flat, man. Never. Eric Spiceley's talented, man. This caught my attention when I was watching this. I was like, damn, this guy's good. Right? So he keep going. Look at that. Nice. Deep. Now, Thiago Santos is doing a lot of the right things. He's not panicking. He's driving weight into it so Spiceley can't turn and create, omoplata or get a sweep or whatever the case. So he tries to stand. He's pushing on this leg, which is the right thing to do. If you can push this down, that means you can get your elbow past. The further you can get your elbow past, the better. But look how long and lanky. Look at the length of that arm on Thiago Santos. This is a great technique to try on him. He uses this to trap him, and I think he extends the far leg on the other leg to essentially if you spread someone's base far enough apart and then you push them in a direction, they'll fall to their butt, which is exactly what he does. He spreads the base and falls over, and you can see he hooks the leg here, the outside. That's the other one. You can't see it. It's on this side, but this side he grabs. Remember Conor McGregor put the overhook here? It's a different sweep, but you get the idea. A lot of the sweeps here, when you grab them, they are typically, and you want this up by your ear, but nevertheless, doesn't really matter. It's at least holding him in place as he spreads his base and then pushes to a direction, and that gets him to go back down, right? So this is only temporary. But again, look how long that that arm is of Thiago Santos. And look at this. The back of the leg is over the top of the shoulder, man. That's a deep omoplata. Problem is, it's just hard to it's hard to submit someone, which we'll see here. So this is like Eric Spiceley is in control of the arm, but he's not really in control of the position, if you ask me, even with this seatbelt here, which he has. Because look at this. Santos is able to get his left leg up, and he's pretty upright, man. For this omoplata to work, he has to be face down and almost flat on his stomach. Even if someone's on their knees, it's hard to get. Because think about it, if they're on their knees, that's how much of however much the space is between their back and then the knee and their floor, because they're on their knees, right? Versus being flat on their belly. That's how much further the angle has to go for the person applying the omoplata. So this is just nowhere close. Now he's kind of stuck here, quote unquote, but it's not close, man. And this is even worse because here's what happens. You see, you can't quite. I didn't put a slide up for it, but you can see that Santos removes. He hand fights this seatbelt with the left hand, and as they turn, you can see he's lost it. Now he's got a hand up. He doesn't have the seatbelt. He's not gripping the far side hip. And at this point, he sort of got he's standing. Now this still hurts, but remember how before we had the back of the knee over the shoulder? Now look where we are. He's still above the elbow, but you can just see this position is going away, right? And then he stands up. And then you see Spiceley actually try to get this shin on this thigh and this shin on this thigh, which he could do for a sweep. He could do to keep turning and invert, and actually you can go and take the back from there. Depending, there's a lot of things you can do. I'm just pointing out from that position. But Thiago Santos steps out of it. Okay, but still, this didn't work. But it was a nice little attempt here from Eric Spiceley. He didn't take hardly any damage underneath. All right, so he shoots for double. Thiago Santos kind of sprawls, but doesn't create enough separation. So outside leg comes over for Eric Spiceley, and they go to the ground. And he immediately has an underhook here and then hops to the other side. What do you notice right away about Thiago Santos versus Eric Spiceley? Right, he is flat on his back, y'all. Flat. I mean, this hip is kind of off only because there's an arm there. Now, he's not giving up all the underhooks in the world. Okay, so I'm not saying this is a disaster or anything, or that he has no skill. But, compare this to Eric Spiceley. Now, Eric Spiceley was doing something different where it's like when you go up against a guy who does that lockdown, that underhook game, it's a bit of an Eddie Bravo kind of game, really. You got to be, if you're the guy on top and the person underneath is trying to underhook you, you have to be super diligent about it, not letting them have it. It's a different kind of game than what this might be, right? He's not trying to get to a hip and then underhook here and then do all the kinds of whip-ups and whatever else. He may be doing something different. Still, I don't know what guard there is where laying on your shoulders is advisable, right? Okay, and so you can see he tries an instep here. I think he could get it. There were several times in this fight where I was watching, I'm like, Spiceley can advance this. I think he was waiting to see what not only Santos would do, but how strong he was in these positions. I don't think he wanted to rush it and lose it. And that was really smart because here he could just slide the knee inside and get it. He can pry this open and move inside. He doesn't really do it. Again, in real time, I was like, I don't quite understand this, but whatever. So he slides, and then he eventually moves to half guard. He doesn't decide to take mount, and you can see he's going to wrap the arm here. He's standing on one hand, so he doesn't quite have full control over it. He goes for it a couple times, can't quite get it. Lets it go, tries to do the Demi and Maya bit where, let's see, that's his, let's see, what knee is this? This is Santos's left knee, right? So it's this one. He lets this arm go and then tries to push this knee to the ground so that he can bring it into mount. Demian Maia is the king of this. And you can see Santos puts a hand up to block it. All right, so he goes back. Look at all the weight leaning on him. But again, Santos keeping his elbow to his ribs. Remember we talked about this before. It's not a lot effective going on here, but at least he's not getting separated out, right? Something to be said for that. Also on his knee, so he's not carrying all the weight that he could be. So he goes again to try and same technique as before, push the knee down, slide into mount. I think Santos pushes the knee back, and then this knee is this ankle is kind of floating in space. So Santos goes up and grabs it, and then as he pushes on the knee here, you can see his fingers brings him back. So he goes back to half guard. Now this is interesting. He kind of gets rolled one way, gets pushed forward. So Spiceley uses his forehead and his head as a post. It's going to be hard to move someone off of a post. So Thiago Santos realizing I can't go this way. What if I went that way? But the arm is kind of hooked, so that's not a great idea either. So what happens? You see him get this underhook here, and look here before, weights down. So Spiceley puts his hand up, hand down, head up. Now he's got room. So Santos digs an underhook here and decides to drive off this foot that way. I'm not saying that's wrong, but you'll see what the problem is here. So look at him drive. He's getting a nice hip turn. Not a ton of elevation, but a nice hip turn. But what do you notice here about the problem with this? As far as he's going, one, Spiceley has the arm hooked. That's the first problem. The second problem is, look at that back foot. This is as far, you're only going to go, when someone is like this, you're only going to go as far as they let you. Now, it's a nice little push, I admit. Thiago Santos is obviously very, very strong. But Spiceley is, number one, in control of this whole thing, and number two, a step ahead. Right? You think look, whose hips are facing the mat? Who's in control of the other one's appendages? So watch this. He steps over, he gets to base. He's already on the move, Jack. Look at him back here. He's kind of to the outside of this Reebok sign. Look at him now. He's almost in the middle of it. By the time he gets to his base, Spiceley is already stepping around. Now, interestingly to note here, what he's going to do is going to take his left foot. He's going to take as big of a step as possible to get around, because he has to take the back, and he's literally the opposite way he needs to be. He needs to become 180 here. That's how far he needs to go. So he's going to take a huge step around to do that. So he's going to take a step that'll allow him to bring this one, and then he can whip that one to the inside. Typically, when someone does this kind of a step, they want to step at least past the shoulder, if not past the leg. But definitely, you want to be able to at least step here, at least. A little harder than it looks, by the way. He gets caught along the way. Isn't that interesting? He gets the step, okay, almost to the outside of the ankle here, but this one gets caught. Santos, this was his chance to grab onto this and then drive forward, or at least stand up and sit through, sort of like a mini funk roll. He doesn't, though. He gives it away, so Spiceley just essentially surfs his hips out to the other way, and Santos puts a hand down because of the weight, but that's just giving Spiceley what he needs to just sit his hips around. You notice he's not even taking steps around. He's putting his hips on top of the small of the back of Santos and literally just like rodeoing his hips around, surfing them around. Okay? And then as you can see, he's going to slide in that top. This one will go on top of the chest. That hand will go on top of this hand, right? The hand that goes over the neck and onto the chest, you pretend like there's a knife in your hand and you're stabbing them. The other hand that is doing whatever comes on top of this one. So left will be on top of right. Okay? Watch. So he sits this foot down. That's going to go elbow deep already, which is nice. Thiago Santos, you can see he's already standing, gets up. A lot of people would have told you to put this hook in first, but I think he was so concerned about making sure he got this one in, this left one in, that he didn't worry about it. Typically, though, a lot of back takes will tell you whatever choking side is, you want this one to anchor you first, but maybe he thought he would fall off. He knew he would get it. He just wanted to get that far side hook in. Anyway, it works, so who am I to say anything? And you can see, whips it around, and then there's nothing blocking this one, so he can just put it in there. And then they finish it off here. You can see, this is kind of interesting. Spiceley digging his hips in, leaning forward. What happens here? He's punching. You can see Santos is blocking, right? What happens next? Oh, this is too heavy. I need to put a hand down. Yep, thank you for that. I appreciate it. Whoop, snatches the neck. Doesn't even have the hook in anymore. Doesn't need it. And I think that closes the show. One quick thing to note here. Check out the hand position. You see how first he kind of does this? Watch how he switches which way the hand faces, like that. See that? He doesn't quite get it all the way that he wants. Just want to point something out. A lot of people think a rear naked choke is this, and then you put the palm of your hand on the back of their head. You do not do that for a couple of reasons. One, if you're in a street fight and someone bangs back, their knuckles could bang you in the face. Believe me, that's possible. That's not the biggest concern in the world, but that's one of them. But the other one is that when you make a fist, I was always taught make a fist and then look at your palm, right? I mean, you don't literally look at your palm, but have your palm facing in, because that will give you just the right amount of ability to slide your arm to the furthest extent possible to get the deepest choke. When you rotate your hand out, your arm gets meatier in the wrong kind of places, and you don't actually use your hand to push their head forward. You don't need it. That's not going to do anything. You see a lot of amateurs, they'll get that rear naked choke and they'll put a palm on the back of their head and they'll just drive it forward with their palm. That doesn't really work against anybody good, and it's technically wrong anyway. And you can see he switches there. He can't, and then, look, it's a fight. He's not going to get it in all the way. But I just want to point out that he knew the difference there. And Eric Spiceley, man, eventually he gets the tap just after this. But Eric Spiceley, man, very, very nice performance from him. Here's the thing, though, that back take. Real quickly, let's go back and look at it one more time. I want to show something here, right? So Santos bucks and rolls. And Spiceley comes around here before we get to here. So here you've got both guys, hips facing the mat, one on top of the other. I want to show you something that this reminded me of. It's not identical, but it's very, very similar. And this is how I recognized it. It's very different in the sense of how it's happening. So he's using this chicken wing as like imagine if you were swinging around a pole, like a street lamp, and you put your arm around it, or like a metro pole if you have a metro in your city. You could swing around it easier if your arm is, you get this pole in the crook of your elbow, right? That's kind of what he's doing here. This is a little bit different there. But check out this technique from Keenan Cornelius from back in the day, and I want to show you what I'm talking about. It's similar to this, and you can see just the different ways sort of jiu-jitsu pieces fit together. All right, so here we have Keenan. This is when he was with Team Lloyd Irvin. This is JT Torres, also when they were with Team Lloyd Irvin. So here we go. Check this out. So this is a thing you do when you're in Kimura. You're trying to get a Kimura, and you can't get it, so you wrap behind. And what you do is you're going to push this into someone. Now, what you're going to see Keenan Cornelius do is you're going to see him do this to get on top. Essentially, it's almost a sweep/submission. I was taught this as a back take. You can actually do this to take someone's back from Kimura. You try Kimura from half guard, you can't get it because they lock their hand to their inside of their hip. So you can do this. You can bring your hips out like that, all the way out though. You have to get your legs free. The legs go free, and what you're going to do is you're going to roll all the way around. But check this out. When you roll all the way around like that, you can see this is not too dissimilar from the position that Spiceley found himself in with Thiago Santos. There are some differences, obviously, not least of which was the Kimura grip that's full on here. And you can see how it finishes. You get someone on your hip, and then you can get them to a Kimura. You can use this for a back take. Look at this. You can use this for a back take. Now, this elbow has to come over the top of the head. There's a couple things you have to do differently. I just sort of wanted to point out here, and then you can get it. Now you can see that's still locked into the inside of their thigh. That's when you can use this, is when the person locks it to the inside of their thigh. But I just want to point out here real quickly, this is not too dissimilar. You come in, you push out, you roll over. Spiceley was this sort of the opposite way. Like this is a backwards version of it, right? He was still face down on top of him. But he brings himself to that position by coming around the back. So it's a little bit of a backwards way of getting to the same position, but it's the same thing from a Kimura transition. Coming out, coming around, and again, Keenan uses it for a sweep/submission threat, but you can definitely use it for a back take. The guy that showed me that, by the way, Seth Smith of Upstream BJJ. If you're ever in Richmond, Virginia, go check that out. Nice little move here. I love these Kimura transitions. Again, this is not identical at all to what Spiceley did, but there's some similarities here about using the grip as a way to whip yourself around and from different positions. This is an upside-down version of what Spiceley did, but nevertheless pretty cool. All right, let's take a look at what's coming up ahead. I believe it's just UFC this weekend. There might be some smaller cards, of course, in every place around the globe, but for the big stuff, UFC Fight Night 96, the train rolls on. This will be at the Moda Center in Portland, Oregon. Takes place on October 1st. Keynote here, main card is only 4 fights, but it starts at 11. So that ought to be interesting. The main card will air on Fox Sports 1. It's 4 fights, headlined by John Lineker versus John Dodson in a bantamweight fight. At lightweight, Ill Will Brooks taking on Alex Oliveira. At lightweight, Josh Berkman versus Zach Otto. And then at flyweight, Louis Smolka taking on Brandon Moreno. Brandon Moreno from The Ultimate Fighter this season. That should be kind of interesting. From the preliminary card, Fox Sports 2, light heavyweight, Luis Henrique de Silva taking on Joaquin Christensen. At a featherweight bout, Hakran Diaz versus Andre Fili. And then we move to heavyweight, Shamil Abdurakhimov versus Walt Harris. Welterweight, Kaita Nakamura versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. And then on Fight Pass, at middleweight, Nate Marquardt, which must be his last stand, versus Tamdan McCrory. Then we have Jonathan Wilson versus Ion Kutalaba, Cody East at heavyweight takes on Curtis Blades. And then women's bantamweight fight, Kelly Fastholtz versus Ketlin Vieira. That, of course, is on Fight Pass. Okay, any comments, questions, email me, luke.thomas@sbnation.com. I'm back. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back next week as well. Congrats to Eric Spiceley and all of this weekend's winners. And thank you guys for watching. Please give it a thumbs up and share it. And until next time, enjoy the fights.